Chicken keepers spend good money every year on worming their flock. $18 for a bottle of chemical wormer at the feed store, and here is the part that stings. Most of those come with a warning that you have to throw out your eggs for a week or two after you dose the bird, so you are paying for the wormer and paying again in the eggs you cannot eat. And half the time you are not even sure the hen had worms in the first place. But my grandmother wormed her whole flock every fall with 1 tablespoon of a thing she used to throw in the trash. A thing you are very likely throwing away right now. And she never lost an egg to a withdrawal warning, because there was nothing in it but food. That is the part that ought to bother you. There is no money in telling you the cure is sitting in the pumpkin on your porch. So the feed store sells you the chemical you have to buy again and again, the one that costs you your eggs, and nobody mentions the free one your great-grandmother used every harvest. Stay with me, because right around the middle of this I am going to show you the one mistake that makes this do almost nothing. The reason most folks try it and figure it is just a story. And I saved the trick for keeping the worms gone for good, not just knocked back, for the very end. Before we go on, do me one small favor. Drop a comment and tell me what state you are keeping chickens in, and whether your birds are looking thin, pale, or off their lay this season. Just those 2 things. Your state and how the flock is looking. I read every one. My grandmother Ada kept the hens behind my grandfather Walt's cattle place in southern Ohio, and every fall, when the garden was done and the pumpkins came in, she did something I did not understand as a boy. I am thinking of the autumns around 1957. She would scoop the slimy insides out of those pumpkins, and instead of throwing the seeds to the compost, she would spread them to dry, grind them up, and mix a scoop into the hen's feed for a few days running. And her birds went into winter fat and bright and heavy, while the neighbors' hens went in thin and pale. I thought she was just being thrifty. I understand it now, and I am going to hand it to you. But first, let me tell you what worms are really costing you, because it is worse than the wormer. A hen with a belly full of worms can eat all day and still go thin, because those worms are down in her gut, stealing the feed before she can ever use it. You are buying feed to fatten worms. Her comb goes pale, her eggs get few and their yolks go weak and washed out, and she can go clean off the lay. And a bad worm load does not just cost you, it can spread through the whole flock and pull every bird down together, because they all peck the same ground. So you are losing eggs across the coop, losing feed by the sackful, and if it goes far enough, losing a hen. And then on top of all that, you pay $18 for the chemical to fix it, and lose a week or 2 of eggs to the withdrawal warning on the back of the bottle. The worm robs you 3 ways, and the store bottle robs you a 4th. A tablespoon of ground seed you were going to throw on the compost handles it for nothing, and never costs you a single egg. Now to beat this, you have to understand the worm. It lives inside the hen, down in her gut, and it holds on tight to the wall of her intestine with little hooks and grips, and there it stays, feeding on everything she eats. You will not often see it. Now and again you might spot one in the droppings, but mostly you just see the signs, the thin bird, the pale comb, the eggs falling off. The worm is hidden, hanging on inside, and to be rid of it you do not have to poison the bird. You just have to make that worm let go. Here is why the pumpkin seed works, plain as I can say it. Inside that seed, and mostly in the green skin just under the shell, there is a natural compound called cucurbitacin. It does one thing, and it does it well. It paralyzes the worm. It makes that worm go slack so it cannot hold its grip on the gut wall any longer, and once it lets go, it simply gets swept on out of the bird with the droppings, alive but helpless. It does not poison the worm, and it does not poison the hen. It just breaks the worm's hold and lets nature carry it out the back door. That is why it is safe enough to eat the eggs the very same day. This is not something I dreamed up on the porch. Researchers who tested ground pumpkin seed against the worms in poultry and livestock found it cut the worm load down real and measurable, and this has been written up in the farm science more than once. The old harvest habit and the laboratory agreed. Now here is where most folks go wrong. And this is the part I promised you. They toss a handful of whole pumpkin seeds to the hens, watch the birds gobble them, and figure the job is done. It is not. And here is why. A whole seed, shell and all, mostly runs straight through a chicken without ever giving up that cucurbitacin. Because the good part is locked inside, and she cannot break it down in time. So the whole trick, is you have to grind them. Crush those seeds up in a blender, a coffee grinder, or with a rolling pin into a rough meal, so the cucurbitacin is set free where the bird can actually use it. Whole seed, almost nothing. Ground seed, and now it works. The second mistake is doing it one time. One dose loosens the grown worms, but a worm has a life cycle. And there are eggs already down in the litter that will hatch into a fresh crop of worms over the next couple of weeks. If you dose one time and walk away, that next crop grows right back up and you are no better off than you started. So you dose again about 2 weeks later to catch that second round before they can grab hold and breed. 2 rounds, 2 weeks apart, and you have broken the cycle instead of just interrupting it. So let me give you the whole method layer by layer. Number 1, get your seeds. Any raw pumpkin or squash seeds will do, straight out of your jack-o'-lantern or your garden squash. And the fresher the better, because the green under the shell is where the strength is. Do not roast them or salt them, raw and plain. Number 2, grind them. Run them through a grinder or crush them into a rough meal so the good is set free. Number 3, feed it out. Mix about 1 tablespoon of the ground seed per grown bird into their feed, or into a warm, wet mash so it clings and they cannot pick around it. And do that for 3 mornings in a row. Number 4, do it again in 2 weeks. The same 3-day run to catch the worms that hatched after the first go. That is the dosing done. Now I know what some of you are thinking. My hens are already thin and pale, and I am scared it is too far gone. Or it is not fall, and I have got no pumpkins. Neither one shuts the door on you. If a bird is already run down, this gentle seed is far kinder to a weak hen than a harsh chemical that hits her while she is already low. So it is exactly what a poorly bird can handle. And you do not need a pumpkin. Any raw squash seed works the same. And you can buy a bag of raw pumpkin seeds at the store any month of the year for a couple dollars. There is no wrong season to clean out a worm. And now the trick I saved for the end, the one that keeps the worms from ever coming back, instead of just knocking them down. The seed clears the worms you have got, but worms come from the ground, from the wet, mucky, droppings foul dirt where the eggs wait to be pecked back up. So if you do not change that, they just come right back. 2 things keep them gone. First, keep that run dry and turned, because a dry run is a run where worm eggs die, and a wet, muddy one is a worm nursery. And second, here is the old kitchen trick. You put 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in every quart of their drinking water a few days a week. That keeps the inside of the bird a touch sour. And worms cannot get a foothold and set up house in a sour gut. The ground pumpkin seed cleans them out, the dry run stops the eggs, and the vinegar keeps the gut a place no worm wants to live. Do those 3, and you are not worming your flock over and over. You have made a bird worms just cannot hold on to. So let me lay it out one more time. Plain and in order. First, take raw pumpkin or squash seeds and grind them into a rough meal, because whole seeds do next to nothing. Second, mix about 1 tablespoon per bird into their feed or a warm mash. 3 mornings running. Third, repeat that same 3-day run 2 weeks later to catch the next hatch. Fourth, keep the run dry and turned, and put a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in their water a few days a week so the worms cannot come back. That is the entire thing. Safe for the hen, safe for the eggs, and free out of a pumpkin you were going to throw away. You did not lose this because it stopped working. You lost it because there is no money in a pumpkin seed. A chemical you buy every season that costs you a week of eggs each time, that is a business worth building. A thing you scoop out of a squash and grind up is not. You were not foolish for buying the bottle. You were just never told a simple thing, or that the cure came free with the harvest. Now you have it back. So do two things for me before you go. First, go back down to that comment box and tell me what state you are in, and whether your birds are looking thin or pale or off their lay. I read every one, and sometimes your question turns into the next video. And second, if you would rather worm your flock with a pumpkin than a poison, come along and sit on the fence with us. This is not about following a channel. It is a porch full of neighbors remembering the old ways one at a time. Next time I am going to show you how to read your hen's droppings like a book. The one thing on that dropping board that tells you a bird is sick days before she ever looks it. And the free fix for the worst of what it warns you about. Most folks never think to look. I will show you next time. Before I let you go, I think about my grandmother Ada at the end of a harvest, grinding up the seeds the rest of the world threw away, sending her flock into a hard winter fat and clean on the leavings of a pumpkin. She never had much, but she used to say nothing on a farm is truly waste until you have run out of ways to use it. Grind the seed, keep them clean, and I will see you in the next one.